Well, good evening, everybody. This is Tim Terranova, the proud superintendent of the Victor Central School District, here for a special town hall. I want to welcome our Ontario County Sheriff, Sheriff Pavro, to the Facebook Live Town Hall. Welcome, Sheriff Pavro.
Thank you, Superintendent. I'm happy to be here and to try to address the some of the concerns of the viewers in your community and the people who support you and your school district.
Appreciate that, Sheriff, and call me Tim.
Oh, all right.
Again, the purpose of this town hall is to really clarify some information around the incident that happened last week. Try to take as many, we already have a series of questions given to us by the PTSA, so we're going to go through those questions and also try to answer questions that you put on Facebook in terms of the comments section. We certainly would appreciate civility with the comments. We know that it's a serious topic. We know there's a lot of angst around the situation that happened last week. And we just want to make sure that you're staying civil and we're not attacking individuals or making comments that would hurt others. So I appreciate that as you ask your questions. Also, again, a big thank you to the PTSA. They sent out a form early this morning for questions from parents. We've certainly received a variety of questions. We're going to try to answer those. And like any town hall, when we have a larger number of viewers, we may not get to all of your questions tonight, answers to your questions tonight, but we're going to review the questions on Facebook and try to make sure we answer all of them to the best of our ability by tomorrow. So turn it over to Sheriff Pavro. Before I talk a little bit about the situation, you want to just give the viewers a little bit about your background, please?
Well, sure. Again, my name is Phil Pavro. I'm a lifelong Ontario County resident. I began my full-time employment with the Ontario County Office of Sheriff in January of 1972. I was hired by Victor resident and Ontario County Sheriff Ed Guinan, and I'm always grateful for his confidence in me. 19 years after that, I was elected sheriff. I served as sheriff for 28 years. I retired at the end of 2018. I returned to the office of sheriff last November of 2021, when there was a vacancy in the office. And it's been my pleasure and proud to serve again the great people of not only the Victor community, but all of Ontario County. And I will engage in retirement 2.0 on the last day of the year, and a new sheriff will begin on January 1st.
Thanks, Sheriff. Appreciate, and that's an extensive amount of service protecting others. So thank you for that service, and appreciate it. I know a lot of others do as well.
My pleasure.
So let me explain just a little bit about, again, the incident that occurred last Wednesday, I believe, November 30th. There was a one-car accident on Wednesday afternoon. There were concerning media posts sent by the individual in the accident that threatened harm to himself and not others. That's important to note. The threat was determined at the point after the accident to actually be low for the school immediately, because the individual was in the presence of both law enforcement as well as medical personnel right away, right after the accident. And that included our own school resource officer that I know Sheriff Pavro is going to talk about in a little bit. So that's why we felt like the district was safe immediately after the accident, because it was a one-car accident. The individual was physically okay, and law enforcement and medical personnel were on site immediately. We then provided communication, first general communication to the public that there was a one-car accident. At that moment, we did not know all the details around it. And then our personnel met, which includes a threat assessment team, individuals at each of our buildings, especially the high school, and then had extensive communication with the sheriff's office that afternoon to really discuss the situation and what we could do to put things in place to make sure people were safe in the future. We added, as a precautionary measure, additional security on our campus, which exists today and will exist until further notice. And we are certainly having ongoing communication with school personnel to evaluate the situation on a consistent basis, as well as ongoing communication between school personnel and the sheriff's office to get their input around safety measures that they deem are important to have in place or continue to be in place. So that's the situation. Now, again, I received many questions from the PTSA that we're going to go over in the next few minutes. And certainly you can ask questions in the comments section of Facebook. But one of the questions I received multiple times, and I guess I'll phrase it this way, Sheriff, we have many people who want to know more about the individual who was in the accident, the identity of the person, sending out his picture, when he was released or is released, was he charged with a crime, etc. So what is the protocol for from the sheriff's department to follow when those types of specific questions are asked?
Yes, sir. And again, I want to preface this, by saying that, one of the certainly the reasons that I want to participate in this tonight is to answer all the questions that we can, understanding that the community and understandably so, has concerns regarding this particular situation. But again, law enforcement is engaged in many investigations on a daily basis. Laws and court decisions, rules, and the regulations, they guide us in law enforcement on how we conduct our investigations, and especially the confidentiality issues surrounding these investigations. Most police ongoing investigations cannot be discussed publicly, again, for various reasons. And there's a lot of it that pertains to the rights of individuals who may be involved in the investigations. Information discussed prematurely can also hamper an investigation in several ways. Law enforcement is generally prohibited from discussing, again, individuals who may be identified for one reason as a victim, a witness, or perhaps a person of interest in this investigation. So in order to avoid public disclosures regarding any ongoing investigations, I am not able to get into specifics discussing the details of any ongoing investigations of the sheriff's office. Again, I understand that there's questions in the community, and we'll certainly do as much as we can to give appropriate information. But regarding discussion on ongoing investigations, I'm restricted and limited as to what information I can provide.
Thanks. I appreciate that, Sheriff. I also want to add that there's also another side to this, because we received multiple questions and comments from people that were concerned that we were too forthcoming and potentially cultivated more of a fear-mongering atmosphere around this particular situation, and we're concerned about the individual's own reputation. We had many comments, multiple comments about that. So we certainly have to balance that with this idea of, being transparent with the community with our first and absolute foremost priority, which is the safety of our students and our staff. I also, mentioned the fact that it doesn't help when social media and rumors that are being spread around things. And I made a comment about this incident or other things. I made a comment in my last message to the community where I said a significant challenge has been for our district and our sheriff's department has been social media posts that for the most part are either inaccurate or bring up things that the sheriff department's already dealt with days ago. People are saying, but people are saying had just occurred. I've told people that unless they hear something from either the sheriff's department or the school district, then the information is typically hearsay and not accurate. So that's important to note. Now, that doesn't mean, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, that we we are saying don't report concerning events or situations or communication that you hear. We want that. In fact, that's one of our major areas of focus, which is if you see something, say something. However, the rumors that are spread around this issue or this situation and other situations across social media doesn't help. And we just want to make sure that people understand that if they hear it from us or the sheriff's department, then it is definitely reputable, and if you hear it from other sources, to be careful where those sources are. I also want to share quickly, Sheriff, a question that came earlier in the day from a community member. Effective means of assessing potential and/or real threats in advance is a good part of what is needed. One question might be, how does VCS balance the need for proactive safety and security needs with the needs to respect a person or person's First Amendment rights, personal privacy rights, and our rights due to due process under the law? Which is a great question just around that balance, as I've talked about before. Certainly, students have the right to the First Amendment and speak their mind. Where we have gotten involved is when the comments from a student or a staff member ends up being in a threatening manner or potentially affecting the health and safety of others in the community or in the district or in the building. If that happens, if it's a threat and or a disruption to the education of other students and staff, then we would get involved. But overall, First Amendment rights certainly are followed. And again, it's a fine balance. Personal privacy rights certainly are followed to the point of where unless we believe there are individuals that are going to act in an unsafe manner, and therefore we're able to move to further steps to check their personal privacy. Many things in a school are not personal, such as lockers. Those are owned by the school district, but we try to balance that with obviously having specific information that says there may be a safety issue or another issue that's indirectly a safety issue to others. That's when we would get involved in checking those items. And right to due process under the law, we obviously follow that all the time. We have to follow that. We're well versed in that, and individuals who have concerns over the district following a certain process that they feel wasn't followed correctly certainly have multiple appeal rights to move forward with and have conversations with us about that process. But we're certainly all about due process under the law. So First Amendment, personal privacy, due process, those are all critically important, and we have to balance that with the first priority, which is the safety of our students and staff. So, Sheriff, we've had some questions about the specific incident. I'll try to answer a few of them, and then you just jump in wherever you want. One of the questions was, why wasn't a lockout or a lockdown called at the time of the incident? And my answer to that, I alluded to it earlier when I said, because as soon as the accident happened, within an incredibly short amount of time, first of all, it was a one-car accident in the grassy area by High Street. The sheriff's office, first responders, and our own school resource officer were there within a very close proximity to when the accident happened. And at that point, from the scene of the accident, the individual was safe physically, but was under the direction of both police officers and the medical personnel. So there was not a direct safety threat at that point. We did receive some of the concerning social media comments almost right away from other community members. And again, those were directed towards his own health and safety, not others. And so because of that, but most importantly, because of the fact that we had the situation under control, we did not need to put the district in a lockdown or a lockout because we had no other credible information that either anybody else was threatening the district or that person was at the time. Any comments you want to make, Sheriff, around that?
I guess, yeah, certainly, Tim. Again, for everybody to understand, this particular motor vehicle crash that occurred on High Street was initially reported to the Sheriff's 911 center as just that, a motor vehicle crash. and police officers responding, went into that direction to investigate with that on their mind. It was clear, again, as you've indicated, Tim, extremely early on at the very beginning, that this crash had absolutely presented no credible threat to the Victor school community or anybody on the school grounds at that time. It was identified as a situation that the police officers followed up, took the appropriate action, and at no time were worried that this presented any threat at all to the school community or the persons who were at the school district at that moment.
Yeah, thank you, Sheriff. Another question, wish you would have been more proactive and closed school or adjusted the school day. Again, it seems like you should have been more proactive around that. I think that goes back to the original answer from this question before that. We didn't, I certainly can see and respect that person's opinion, but we did not have a specific threat that was above a low level. And so therefore, thanks to our collaboration with the Sheriff's Department, again, we take direction from them around specific safety needs in the community. We felt strongly that it was appropriate to have school as a normal school day with, again, as a precautionary measure, additional security on campus. Anything else with that one, Sheriff?
No, I mean, you've hit it exactly on the head. If there was any, sort of indication or belief, or again, credible information that this was anything at all that would have impacted the safety and security of the Victor School District, the police officers on the scene, including your very dedicated school resource officer, would have certainly relayed that fact to you and the administrative personnel at the school district, at which time, there would have been a collaboration about where to move forward to, certainly do something if there was a need to enhance the safety and security.
Thank you. And then there's a series of questions about the specific, just about this specific security concern and general security concerns, immediate security concerns on campus. One of them is, what is our overall staffing for security? So this year, thanks to the leadership of our Board of Education, we were able to pass a budget that for the first time increased security personnel that work for our district to be on campus. That includes a coordinator of district security, Steve Zlavny. It also includes 3 additional full-time security officers, 2 of which are retired police officers, and they're on campus full-time. We also have been contracting out with a security company to have additional security for afternoons and evenings, including evening events, especially events that have large amounts of people. So that is really the general staffing. And then on top of that, we have our school resource officer, Brittany Arnold, who is a sheriff's deputy and works directly with Ontario County Sheriff and is a liaison between the sheriff's office and us. So Sheriff, do you want to talk a little bit more about the role of the school resource officer?
Sure, I'm happy to. I'm very, I have to say that I'm extremely proud of the police officers, our deputy sheriffs that volunteer to serve as school resource officers in our campuses across Ontario County. For many of you, I'm sure that are listening or watching tonight, you'll recall that the first Ontario County Sheriff's School Resource Officer was in fact placed in the Victor school system. And again, that event, which was probably about 20 years ago now, led to the eventual spreading of the entire school resource officer to all school districts in the county. And I'm very proud of that accomplishment for our organization, the support of the County of Ontario, and also the various schools that recognize the value of a school resource officer, not only the safety and security aspect, but the roles and responsibilities which enhance the overall mission of the schools, which is to educate students and put them in a position where they can graduate at the end of the senior year. And I'll talk, a little bit more about that. The SRO program, as it's currently in place, again is sponsored by the county, the school districts, and the sheriff's office. And we've worked, very hard to come up with a program to place the school resource officers in the schools who are qualified, who are dedicated professionals, and who clearly, have a personal mission to go above and beyond the normal law enforcement roles and responsibilities that you would expect of a police officer. The well-rounded school resource officer, seeing the big picture of his or her responsibility, understands that it's more than just law enforcement. And please always remember that a school resource officer, in our case, is always first and foremost a police officer. One of the things we've always discussed internally, again, is to have the school resource officer support the overall mission and goals of a school district, to try to provide that type of environment, support, mentoring, if you will, so that each student can graduate from high school and go on to be successful adults. We look at the role of the school resource officer kind of in wearing three different hats. They'll be considered an educator, kind of a guest lecturer that will go to various schools, the buildings in the Victor District, and particularly talking about some specific topics that support safety and security for the students. They're also serve as an informal counselor or mentor. We find the value of this to be extraordinary, and that so many people will confide in the school resource officer about issues or problems that we can help direct them to. That is, being a resource to allow them the opportunity to gain, in fact, this particular goal of graduating from high school. Again, the resource officer is familiar with services provided by mental health, by drug education counseling, and other areas where if students express concerns, that they have issues, we can help them through some of these, crisis or problems they may be having in their personal lives. And of course, finally, again, as I said, the school resource officer is always first and foremost a police officer, and will act in that regards to enhance the safety and security of the facility. There's just so many positive areas that the SRO can serve and be of assistance to the individual school districts. Just some of the benefits of SRO programs include the prevention or minimization of damage or property damage or other incidents caused in the school with the police officer there. Prevention of student injuries due to perhaps fights, misbehavior of the students. This is diminished as well. By having the officer there, I think Tim would agree that having that person there and being proactive also allows the schools to prevent some calls to 911, to have to report some instances, because the SRO is there to intervene and try to de-escalate, a situation or solve a situation in-house. I always like to say that equating the school resource officer to the old cop on the beat. Those of us that remember the police officers that worked the beat, they knew their neighborhood, they knew the people that lived and worked and traveled in their neighborhood. They knew their problems. they knew their circumstances, and they were more proactive as trying to help them enhance their quality of life than necessarily being a vehicle to arrest and introduce people into the criminal justice system. That leads us into some other advantages of the SRO, which is, again, the reduction of the likelihood that a student will in fact enter the criminal justice system. The SROs are there, again, to be of assistance to the student, to try and assist them with some of the problems they may have, some that may come in from home that are interrupting or making it difficult for them to learn. We partner with the Ontario County Youth Court, and that being a program under the Partnership for Ontario County is meant just that. It's a vehicle to divert people from the criminal justice system, young people into school. Our school resource officers are tremendous conduits and introduction of people into that organization to, again, attempt to prevent them from ending up with a criminal record.
And Sheriff, just
Yes.
not to interrupt, one of the advantages we had in this particular incident was that, Brittany was on site right away. As I said, the both police and paramedics and first responders were on site, and then they were able to do what they do outside of a school district, which is assess the situation separate from the school. And that means, that all things are put in place. We're not going to talk specifically about that incident,
Right.
but all procedures are put in place to make sure that based upon that incident, people are safe, which includes certainly, checking the car itself, making sure that, again, mental health providers are available to support the individual, and then having the police presence and doing things behind the scenes around that to also protect the community. And as you said at the beginning, we're not going to get into some of the specifics around that because we can't, but rest assured that that link between Brittany, who is our SRO, and then the police, and then yourself has been a huge, not just in this situation, but others, has been a huge positive in terms of supporting our overall safety. Can I just throw a few more things out there? Because I
Sure,
know
go ahead.
people have questions.
Yes.
A couple things around the safety of the district, because these are immediate safety concerns. So why don't we check all vehicles as they enter the campus, both, during the school day? And that's something, that we don't do. Obviously, we have, I think, 4 entrances to the campus, and we are not at this point able to certainly have the personnel to check every car that comes in the district. We do, however, have, with our new additional security personnel, have the ability to have increased patrols on campus during the school day as well as after school. And those patrols can support immediate safety concerns that might happen in the moment. But it's not right now realistic for us to be able to check every car that goes in the school entrance. Also, do we check for weapons when kids come to school, or check for weapons through any type of, system that some schools have? We don't do that. It's not something the vast majority of schools have in our area, and we have not moved to that level of, checking for weapons as they enter the building. And also, important question, does the sheriff office connect with the school district if they have concerning intelligence out in the community around a potential threat to the district? And you want to just take that one, Sheriff?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and clearly the answer to that question is absolutely yes. This is another one of the benefits of having a police officer in the school, is the law enforcement officers in the county, throughout the area. They all talk to each other, they communicate together. And I can tell you from many years of experience that when another police officer, either for the sheriff's office or one of the city police departments, or even Monroe County, says, hey, I have developed information that a student at such a school district, may be involved in this or may have done that, that information is first of all sought, the school resources are sought out to share that information with, and then that school resource officer, again, based on the memorandums of understanding we have with the school district, will get together with the school administration, faculty, et cetera, and discuss, this particular information, again, to discuss whether there's any sort of credible, basis to it. And then to look at, is there a strategy to deal with it? It may not be necessarily something where law enforcement needs to be involved, but it might be a situation where law enforcement in the school district realize that there might be another avenue out there, another venue, such as mental health or for drug prevention that might be appropriate for an individual student. So the simple answer to your question is yes, that type of collaboration is integral and essential to maintain the relationship that we want to have to keep between our office and the school districts to keep the campuses safe.
And two other points. Thanks, Sheriff. They are asked about outside recess, which is a concern for many people when we have large groups of kids outside for recess, especially at the elementary levels. Currently, we have the additional support from the sheriff's office to monitor those locations. The actual question was, if there was a high alert, what would you do about resource? I believe that was a resource. What resources would you implement to support recess and outside activities? Well, if we had a high alert from your office that there might be a safety issue directly impacting our district, we're not going to have outdoor recess. We would only have outdoor recess if we felt and had communication with the sheriff's department that it was safe to have outdoor recess. In the meantime, we do have to be proactive around those types of activities. And that includes, again, looking at our overall security and especially the security of the campus during those times and utilizing our security officers as best we can to monitor those locations at different times. But we wouldn't have recess or outside activities if we had a high threat to individual safety. And that again gets to what we've been talking about tonight, which is, for lack of a better word, the intelligence that's shared, not just between school personnel, but between school personnel and the sheriff's office and the county resources. And that is something that's ongoing and we utilize to make decisions in situations like the one we just talked about. Also a question, what's the protection for pickup and drop off time? And what about dismissal and our walkers? Those are certainly areas of also that are concerning any day that we have. Those are high profile times when large groups of kids are outside and adults. So one of the things that we've implemented before I got here was a group of traffic control individuals who help with traffic control, but are also monitoring situations as they do that. That's a huge help at dismissal and arrival time. Again, similar to the recess piece, we have operations in place that try to make sure that we're visible, especially utilizing the security. We are partnering with the sheriff's department to look at a variety of different patrols and the ability to pass through and do patrols at different times within the campus. That's really important. I think it's also important to mention that we're not going to share all the specific safety measures and emergency practices that we have in place in our school district. And the main reason we're not going to share those publicly is because that could seriously increase the likelihood that somebody could get hurt. We need to make sure our procedures are specific to our staff and that those procedures are within the school district, because we don't want, in this case, the bad people out there getting more information than they need around our safety procedures that they could then use to get around some of those procedures. So I want to be careful how much we share around that, but I can tell you that certainly recess and arrival and dismissal is a high priority area for us, and we continue to try to work on those, but make sure we utilize not only our own security, but also the sheriff's office to support that. I also had a question about what are current processes in place that could mitigate the threats of people similar to the situation that just occurred. So let me just go through this real quick, just a general concept of what we do. around a potential threat. First and foremost, we address the immediate threat to figure out whether it's low, medium, or high level. And that has to happen in immediately, as soon as possible. This gets back to our real strong intelligence that we have in this school district, which is really through our student body and to some cases our parents and our staff. They have told us numerous times if there's any concerning social media messages that are out there, or they hear something through individuals, we find out about that and then we check on those, every one of them. And if we deem it something that is beyond the level of just the school district, we immediately would share that with our Ontario County Sheriff's Office. So we try to use intelligence in real time and make sure that people have the availability. I want to make sure people know that they could use what's called the Safe Schools Helpline, which is right on our website. It's also on the Victor Blue Devils athletic website. See something, say something is our priority, and the Safe Schools Helpline can get us information right away if you see something that's concerning. Certainly people can call or email the school district also if they have any issues or concerns around threats. So we try to deal with them immediately. We need to evaluate the threat immediately. We need to implement security measures where appropriate. And that includes our emergency procedures that I mentioned earlier, where we're not necessarily getting specific with in the public, but we do significant work with our staff, and we'll continue to do more work with the staff around those emergency procedures. We assess the threat mainly through what's called a threat assessment process. That includes law enforcement collaboration, mental health collaboration, as well as technology to, if it's a student, to really look into the social media aspects of that student. I want to mention one thing around that, which is, let's see if I can find it. I'll find it in a second. The threat assessment training guides are designed to assist in the investigation of potential danger. That includes identifying circumstances and risk factors that may increase risk for potential aggression, and to assist staff in the development of a management plan. Furthermore, this involves utilizing a comprehensive multidisciplinary team that reviews information and provides ongoing supervision and intervention in the event circumstances change. We also have what's called a trauma, illness, and grief team, or a TIG team, that works directly with our threat assessment teams, who assist with crisis intervention and response to assist students and staff to return to normal routines as quickly as possible after a school or community-related crisis or event occurs. So the question originally was, what is the processes in the place to mitigate individuals from potentially causing harm to our students and our staff? And really, it's a multi-dimensional process that starts with assessing the threat itself immediately, using our resources to help do that, and then move forward in that piece. It's all about relationships. And if this happens to be a student or even a former student, we do have individuals with those relationships that are critically important to monitor the situation. Anything you want to add about that? I know that was wordy, Sheriff. Didn't know if you wanted to add anything.
Just again, briefly, that you've hit it on the head, and for all of you again that are listening to this and trying to understand all the prevention that goes into and all the planning that goes into maintain the safety and security of the school campus, you need to actually be very proud of your school district. Victor, Canandaigua are a couple of the school districts in the county that have move forward on their own to develop these threat assessment teams. They're extraordinarily beneficial. They're multidisciplinary. They involve law enforcement, but most importantly, they try to identify issues and situations before they become problems. Some of you may have seen on the news recently programs out of Monroe County called ROCTAC, which is the same thing, a threat assessment team set up in Monroe County. Here in Ontario County, we're looking at that same program on a countywide basis, which would also reach out and touch the school districts so that they could also benefit from what we're doing on a county level. But again, it's important for people to understand that these teams exist in Victor that are there to identify if threats or some sort of situations brought to their attention that could be a potential for concern or inhibit the safety of the school campus, that your teams are in place to look at these, deal with them, and then take appropriate action, be it either reaching out to law enforcement, mental health, or another appropriate agency.
Appreciate that, Sheriff. Some other questions. My communication said there will be increased security as long as the sheriff's office deems it necessary. Does that mean that there is currently an increased threat level? No, we don't have an increased threat level at this time. The increased presence of the sheriff's office is precautionary and meant to make sure there's visibility around us that's greater than typical. And again, and I'll let the sheriff speak, but that's really then a collaboration and communication between the two of us regarding when potentially the sheriff's presence is decreased, knowing that we've increased our overall security presence on campus since last year.
Yeah, we historically recognize that our schools, they house our most valuable resource, our most valuable population, our children. We want to prevent any violence, any issues there, and protect them as best we can. Our office, the state police, we all have routine patrols in the Victor area, and frankly, the patrols in the Victor area on a normal time are greater than in most other parts of Ontario County, with the population, with the other calls for service that we receive there. We encourage all our police officers on patrol that while school is in session, if you have time to just always drive through the campuses, look around, be observant. Again, as Tim pointed out earlier, if you see something, say something. Our best resources are our police officers who are trained observers and when they're on the campuses, if they see something unusual, they can check it out. And again, if nothing else, use it as intelligence for planning for the school district. So the mission of the Office of Sheriff is always to recognize that our children are our most valuable population, and we want to do all we can to protect them.
I appreciate that, Sheriff. So I know we're still getting different questions around the specific situation and questions specific to the individual. And I know you've already articulated that we're not able to speak specifically to those situations. I can tell you this, that again, based upon our processes that we use to secure and make sure people are safe, when we see a situation that potentially is threatening, if it's a student of ours, we address it through the process I talked about earlier, doing the assessment of the threat through multiple means, communicating with the families, and then contacting law enforcement and mental health providers as needed. If it's an outside person or somebody who's not a student, then we can't do those specific things, obviously, to the level we could if it was a student. But if it's somebody that's not a student, that's where we rely and communicate even more strongly with outside resources like the county's mental health providers, mental health leadership, as well as certainly the sheriff's office, to make sure and to, confidentially discuss different measures that are in place to support that individual in terms of decreasing the safety risks towards the school district. If the sheriff's office feels like there is risk, then we increase the safety precautionary methods to deal with that risk. If the sheriff's office does not feel like there's additional risks, then we typically do not do that, and we maintain our current or typical, I guess I would say, safety measures. We have increased safety measures for the past few days, and will continue to do so, as I said, more so for a precautionary measure, not because we have specific information around a threat or increased threat around this situation. I don't know. So I wanted to just kind of try to address that as much as I could as we talk further. A few questions around long-term security. What is being done for students' mental health that is actually proactive? And that's a critically important question, because a lot of our issues and challenging issues have to do with mental health. We know that mental health concerns are on the rise. We know that they take a vast toll on individuals, and certainly it has an impact on school safety. So some of the things that we've done is we have added significant additional support around counselors, social workers, and psychologists in our school district over the last few years. Again, thanks to the leadership from our Board of Education, we've restructured what we call our pupil services department, which includes special education, but also related services like psychologists, social workers, and counselors, to add support for at the building level, especially for our individual needs of students. We've restructured the way we look at kids and their needs, both from an academic standpoint and a social emotional standpoint. We use really a process to evaluate the needs of those kids and then apply interventions and supports either at a lower level or all the way up to a higher level of support. We have strong, I think one of the most important things we have, and it's not necessarily a process or part of an emergency plan, is our staff and faculty is unbelievable at building relationships with kids and families. And so when you have those relationships, when things get tougher, there's challenging behaviors or challenging types of situations, then our staff is able to connect with those kids, keep those relationships, hear more information than we would if we separated from those relationships. And then again, able to access some of the increased supports in our community to get that additional support outside the home and with the school. That includes some new ideas that we're having conversations with all our Ontario County superintendents are having conversations with Ontario County leadership around some additional supports for mental health resources within the school districts across Ontario County. We're having some great conversations about that. We have another meeting in January about it, and we hope to have, again, some increased increased settings and sites for mental health support for our students and families on site and on our district's property across the county that can add those supports to deal with situations in a quicker manner than having families have to wait a long period of time for that support or drive multiple miles when maybe some families aren't able to do that. So all of these things are in place from a proactive measure, and then moving forward, we're also looking at it, I guess what I would call reactively, but not in a negative way, around our emergency plans and our processes in place when threats occur. That's also something that is being done on an ongoing basis and has strong collaboration with the county. Anything you want to add about any of those subjects, Sheriff?
Again, just to say that as an organization, and again, you mentioned the word relationship, is that we value our relationship with the Victor School District. We want to continue to provide professional law enforcement services. Again, when it comes to emergency response, we're a closest car county. When our dispatch center gets a call for service, we're sending whoever the closest cars are, be they deputies or state police, realizing the time of the essence to deal with these emergencies and other urgent situations that arise. And again, from a general perspective, without getting specific, again, we take all the investigations that we're tasked with to try and identify and work through very seriously. And we will always work in that conjunction with any investigations, whether it's with the Victor School District or throughout the county, to investigate thoroughly, to take appropriate action, and to do all we can to maintain the safety and security of the community.
Yes, and the additional security we have on campus, not just the additional security, but the relationship and presence of our school resource officer allows us to get to a safety situation almost immediately anywhere on the campus. And that's what our goal is. That's why we've increased. And I'm telling you that we're not finished yet, that we have a long-range plan to increase security in the district. We're continuing to look at facility improvements that would improve security. We're looking at all angles of security. I know there's questions on the town hall around gates for the entrances and other ways to monitor people coming and going from the campus. Those are discussions we're having. as well as discussions linked to our next capital project, because sometimes safety procedures or safety enhancements have to do with facilities, and that includes capital projects. So these are all ongoing long-term discussions that we're having to enhance the safety of this campus, not just during the school day, but certainly in those hours from 3 o'clock till 9 or 10 p.m. when we know that this campus is extremely busy with people. I just want to say there's a couple other questions that have shot up. I just want to talk about. So one was, do we train our students for emergency procedures? Yes. We have multiple emergency procedures that we drill consistently. Sometimes we're taking a step back and revamping some of those procedures, working through them with our administrators, go step by step then with the staff around how to do it. And then the next time go through more independently. That's a process we're going to implement over the next 6 weeks around some of our safety drills that are important. But yes, we certainly train our students, and we rely on our students and their leadership to support us in that. A question around the third security officer we hired. They're not a police officer. That's true, but they are a trained security officer. They have significant training through that. You do not have to be a police officer to be a security officer. And this individual, our third person, is significantly trained. And like I said, the other two security officers, along with our director of district security, are retired police officers. Trying to see if there's any other questions that I can answer right now. Any closing remarks from you, Sheriff? You've been fantastic, and just the time you took to be with me and to talk to the community about this situation, I really appreciate. Anything else you want to add? I have a couple comments after that.
No, I just want to say that it's certainly been, my pleasure to be with you tonight, Tim, and to address these concerns and questions. We clearly have a joint mission, again, to promote safety and security of the campus. We want the public to be well aware of that. We want the public to be well aware of that any situation that may be related to the campus is and will be thoroughly investigated, and appropriate action will be taken. And just finally to say that, again, I can't reiterate enough how grateful I am that the Victor School District has taken on its own team to analyze threats, and how grateful I am to have such a dedicated school resource officer like Deputy Arnold assigned to the Victor School, who has done a tremendous amount of work in recent days in understanding the concerns of all people affiliated with the Victor Central School District campus. And I thank her, I thank all of you for everybody's work together to promote safety of the campus.
Appreciate that, Sheriff. Thank you for all your work. I know there's some questions, there's different questions on the Facebook Live site that haven't been answered. I'll try to do those to the best of my ability in the next 24 hours, or hopefully before then. In addition, just a big thank you to our faculty and staff. They've been amazing through this whole situation. I can't thank them enough what they do every day, not just teaching and learning and all their other jobs that are critically important to this district, but certainly the relationships they build with kids. I said it before, that's the #1 priority. They do a fantastic job with that, and they'll continue to do that. So thank you to our faculty and staff for their awesome professionalism. And I know principals have sent out talking points to parents that can be used for their children when they encounter stressful situations or situations that are confusing, and we don't necessarily know as adults how to talk to them, especially at home. So those were sent out from our principals from each building. If you did not receive that, please contact your principal and we can send that out again. As I said earlier in my last update on Sunday, I'm going to have my regular community message, written community message this Friday. I would update the community earlier than that. If we have any new or valuable information to share, I'll certainly do that. And we will be transparent as possible with the community. Thanks again, Sheriff. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Have a good evening. And again, we'll have another Facebook Live later in December, actually. So I look forward to that. Have a great evening, everybody.
Have a great evening. Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Thank
Happy
you.
holidays.
Thank you.